Kat's footsteps faltered in the sterile corridor, the fluorescent lights above flickering in rhythm with the pounding of her heart. She stopped dead, as though her body had betrayed her mind, frozen by the sight that pierced through her chest like a jagged blade. There, through the small window of the clinic room, she saw Tomas. Her Tomas. Her once trusted anchor in a world of uncertainty. He was holding Eva's hand, and not in a casual, friendly way. His grip was intimate, protective, possessive. The realization hit her with merciless force. Tomas had betrayed her, and Eva. Eva was carrying his child. The weight of that truth pressed on her lungs, constricting her breath and twisting her stomach into knots. Anger surged, sharp and hot, but it was laced with a profound, gnawing despair that left her trembling in place. Every memory of Tomas, every whispered promise, every moment of shared laughter, now tasted bitter, tainted with the venom of deception. The world she had built around trust and love crumbled in an instant, leaving only a raw, chaotic storm of rage, grief, and disbelief swirling inside her. Kat froze in the hallway outside the clinic, her body rigid, every nerve alight with an unbearable tension that made it nearly impossible to breathe. The sight before her eyes felt like a physical blow to the chest, a force that squeezed her heart into a tight, merciless knot. Tomas, the man she had loved with all the intensity she could muster, was holding Eva's hand. Not just holding it casually, but in that intimate, possessive way that screamed of a connection Kat had never imagined could exist between them. They sat together, waiting for the ultrasound results, utterly oblivious to the fact that Kat had witnessed the scene. Or perhaps, Kat feared, they were fully aware, and it didn't matter. The realization that Tomas had betrayed her was one thing. The fact that Eva was carrying his child was another, a cruel twist of fate that shredded every certainty Kat had clung to in the fragile architecture of her heart. The shock surged through her like molten fire, hot and heavy, burning through her chest and radiating into every limb. She felt paralyzed, yet there was a magnetic pull to move, to storm into that room and confront the betrayal in all its stark, humiliating reality. But every instinct was divided, torn between outrage and despair. How could she have been so blind? How could someone she had trusted so completely be capable of such cold, deliberate treachery? And yet, there they were, proof of her worst fears, proof that her love had been not just unreciprocated, but actively replaced by another. Her mind reeled, fragments of memories colliding in a chaotic montage, laughter shared over late-night dinners, Tomas's hand in hers during long walks, whispered dreams of a shared future that now seemed to have been nothing but lies. Each memory twisted painfully, a dagger coated in deceit. Every smile, every gesture of tenderness now bore the weight of falsity. The betrayal was not simply physical, it was an annihilation of trust, a repudiation of the bond she had cherished above all else. The fact that the betrayal was intertwined with the possibility of a child, Tomas's child, made the pain almost intolerable, as though the universe itself had conspired to humiliate and wound her in the most intimate, excruciating manner. Kat's anger surged, raw and blinding. It was not merely a simple flare of indignation, it was a consuming inferno, a burning tide of fury that clawed at her insides and demanded release. She hated Eva with a venom that was as immediate as it was irrational. She hated Tomas for the irreparable fracture he had caused, for the way he had chosen Eva in that moment, for the illusion of love he had maintained so skillfully. And most piercing of all, she hated herself for being vulnerable enough to trust, to love, to hope, and to allow her heart to be so thoroughly weaponized against her. Yet beneath the searing anger lay a deeper, more insidious turmoil. Kat felt an almost hypnotic pull of fascination mingled with disgust, a compulsion to study every detail of Tomas and Eva together, to analyze their gestures, their expressions, the subtle intimacies that once would have filled her with joy. Now, those same gestures were poison, each one a reminder of the gulf that had opened between her and the life she had imagined. Every shared glance, every gentle touch, became evidence of her obsolescence, a record of her replacement. The internal conflict tore at her. Part of her wanted to lash out, to confront, to tear everything down in a cathartic, violent surge of righteous wrath. Another part, smaller and quieter but equally insistent, wanted to retreat, to vanish, to escape the unbearable reality and the suffocating heat of humiliation. Between these impulses, Kat felt suspended, as though gravity itself had abandoned her. She was trapped in a liminal space, a void of indecision where each option, action, inaction, confrontation, retreat, carried the weight of irreversible consequences. Anger began to mutate into strategy. Kat's mind, sharpened by pain, started to map out possibilities, plotting sequences of events in a detached, almost clinical manner. But the more she thought, the more aware she became of her own capacity for darkness. The idea of revenge, precise and calculated, tempted her, offering the semblance of control in a situation that had rendered her powerless. But alongside it came terror, a visceral fear of what she might become if she surrendered fully to that impulse. Would she be just as cruel, just as reckless, as the people who had hurt her? Could she unleash this fury and emerge intact, or would it consume her entirely? Her self-loathing intertwined with the rage. How could she have been so naive, so willing to surrender everything for someone who would so easily discard her? How could she have believed in a future that was already a lie? Each question, rhetorical yet suffocating, reinforced the paradox of her situation. She was both victim and accomplice, both powerless and dangerously aware of the means by which she could reclaim power. The betrayal had not only broken her trust but had also illuminated her own potential for destructive action. Kat's gaze lingered on Tomas, and the surge of anger became almost tactile, a dense, oppressive presence pressing against her chest. She saw not just the man who had betrayed her, but the embodiment of her own misjudgments, her own vulnerabilities. In Eva's calm presence, she perceived a mirror of her own insecurities, amplified and weaponized. The two of them, united in a way Kat had never anticipated, had rewritten the rules of her emotional universe. The equilibrium she had known, the stability, the hope, the sense of belonging, was obliterated. She was left adrift in a storm of feelings too violent and contradictory to name. Every heartbeat seemed to echo the enormity of her dilemma. Each pulse reminded her that time was moving forward, indifferent to the agony she endured. Each step she might take could redefine the future irrevocably, for herself and for them. Kat realized that passivity was itself a choice, fraught with consequences. The tension between retaliation and withdrawal, between the desire for justice and the fear of moral corruption, became almost unbearable. She felt as though she were perched on the edge of a precipice, each breath a gamble, each thought a potential spark to ignite a conflagration she could not contain. Beneath the storm of emotions, a cold clarity began to emerge. Kat recognized that her survival depended on mastering the chaos within. The fury, the heartbreak, the betrayal. These were instruments, tools she could wield if she could temper them with precision. But doing so required confronting truths she had long avoided, the capacity for cruelty within herself, the willingness to manipulate, to deceive, to act in ways that could hurt others as profoundly as she had been hurt. The revelation was as frightening as it was liberating. In order to reclaim agency, she would have to embrace the very darkness she had feared. Kat stepped back from the clinic, her hands trembling, her chest a battlefield of fury and exhaustion. The corridor stretched before her like a gauntlet, each step heavy with the weight of betrayal. She had witnessed the final proof of everything she had feared, and yet, in that very horror, a strange clarity emerged. The world had not ended, it had merely revealed its cruelest truths. Tomas had chosen Eva, and with her, a life that Kat could no longer touch. Yet within the wreckage of trust and love, Kat discovered a new, terrifying sense of power, the power of knowing exactly what had been taken from her, and the power to decide how she would respond. She did not feel victorious, she felt raw, unrefined, a force of nature barely contained within a human frame. Every instinct screamed for vengeance, for justice, for the satisfaction of making Tomas understand the depth of his betrayal. And yet, intertwined with that hunger was a recognition of the cost, of surrendering to the same darkness that had been unleashed upon her, of becoming a reflection of the cruelty she despised. Kat realized that life would not grant her closure in easy terms. There would be no tidy endings, no immediate redemption. Only the slow, grinding reclamation of self, piece by piece, from the ruins of love and trust. And as she walked into the cold light of the afternoon, Kat carried both the weight of heartbreak and the spark of a resolve that no betrayal could extinguish. She was wounded, yes, but she was also awakening, every heartbeat a declaration that the fire within her would not be snuffed out, no matter the cost.